Welcome to episode 70 of the Hoopsfix podcast with me, your host, Sam Nita, full-time British basketball advocate. And on this week's show, we have another legend of the game. It is Delme Herriman. He recorded over 77 caps for his country and had more than a decade-long professional career all over Europe and in the BBL, winning championships in the process. And I wanted to do this show because he has a book. It's not new, but it is well worth a read. Mr Versatility. I've got to give it a plug because I wanted to do this podcast after I'd read the book, which I've now read, and I can highly recommend it. So go check out his website, delmeherriman.com, and then you can buy a copy to get swatted up on some history of the game and obviously Delme's career, which goes into everything we go into in this episode in a lot more detail. And it's super interesting, super personal, and I really enjoyed it, so I think you should definitely go and check it out. One thing worth mentioning is the internet quality was a little bit dodgy. The video feed, the audio was absolutely fine, but the video on his end was a little bit pixelated throughout, so just bear that in mind, but stick with it. It is well worth a listen. Before we get into the show, please take 2 seconds to go and check out our Patreon account, patreon.com/hoopsfix, patreon.com/HOOPSFIX. There you can sign up to give us a monthly contribution of as much or as little as you like to help us do the work that we're doing. We cannot do it without your support. Please go and check it out, patreon.com/hoopsfix. As always, hit me up on my email address, sam@hoopsfix.com, if you've got any feedback, or you can reach me on every single social media platform at Hoopsfix. Anyway, that's enough from me. Here is this week's show with Delme Herriman. Delme, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Sam.
So, I've wanted to do this for a long time, but I didn't want to do it until I read your book. As I said to you, I felt like it would be amiss for me to not have done the research and kind of have the context to everything, which I thoroughly enjoyed it. So we're going to give it a plug on the show and recommend that everyone go out and read it. And I think that everything that we're about to get into over the next 60 to 90 minutes is covered in a lot more detail in the book, which is available on your website, which I'll put a link to in the description so people can go and check it out for themselves. But I always start these podcasts by going right back to the beginning and finding out what it was that got you into basketball, what made you first pick up a ball, and how you kind of first fell in love with the game. So let's start from there.
I'd say it was watching FSO Vikings in Warrington, probably mid-80s. It was like when Will Brown, Jeff Jones was playing for the team. And then my brother started playing basketball for Manchester United under 15s. So just going along with him, that's how I fell in love with the game.
And kind of, you sort of detailed it in the book that, you were kind of session seeing him. And at that point, you were obviously, there wasn't an under 13s team, right? And there was a kind of discussion about whether or not the club, Manchester United, could set up an under 13s team so you were able to play. Is that right?
Yeah, because there was only a couple of players. So my dad had approached the coach and just said, look, that there's only like 4 or 5 players, but can we start another 13s team? So then after a few months, they decided they had enough players to start one.
And that we hear, like when we sort of talk about the history of the game here, we hear that Manchester United used to have a basketball team, and it was linked to the football club, right? Like, what was your memory of that club sort of set up back then?
It was really good. Like I said, the football club sponsored the basketball team. Sharp Manchester United. They used to play at the Stretford Sports Centre. We used to go there, watch the games. It was just unbelievable. The competition was just brilliant.
Why did it? Do you know why it ended up coming to an end? Why that partnership sort of stopped?
I really don't know. I think it stopped when I went to the States, so I'm not sure exactly what happened.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to kind of dig up all that stuff and sort of find out. So your own journey, you started out at Manchester. What were kind of like your early memories of those sessions of basketball in the area, of kind of like what it was that was inspiring you to start to take the game more seriously?
We had a really good team. I remember playing with Sean Mackay. He was dominant point guard at that time, playing up a few levels. You had Danny Craven just starting out, Yorick Williams, a few years younger than me. We just had a really good team. And then the junior team with like Pluto Verlutis and Chris King and all those guys, they was like, national champions and things. So it was just a really good setup.
Did you feel like you had a natural ability for basketball, or was it something that you had to work for at the beginning?
I'd say I had to work for it. I had the natural love and passion, but yeah, I wasn't quite coordinated. I was a little bit slow. I was really skinny. So all those things I just developed over time.
And the narrative is that ultimately you ended up realizing that the States is the place that you want to get to. That is where you can kind of achieve all your basketball dreams and pursue your goals. How did the States become on your radar? Like, how did it become a thing in your consciousness of recognizing that that's where you want to get to and that's where you want to take yourself?
I would say two things. One was going on Leeds basketball camp that Dave Smith used to run, going to those camps and meeting American coaches and then talking about the game and things like that. That was the first thing. The second thing was probably watching college basketball, watching like Steve Bucknell playing at North Carolina, Carl Brown at Georgia Tech. I don't know. I think I got sent the videotapes or something, but watching that just set it off there. I just had to go and try and follow their footsteps.
Yeah, I was going to say, in that era, like to be able to actually watch college basketball, in England, it must have been relatively difficult. So what was it, a case of, other players or coaches getting hold of VHS tapes from somewhere, whether it was sent back from the States, and then kind of you would then be able to watch it?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. It was coaches that I befriended from the camp. They would send games over, NCAA games. That was generally it, I think, because Channel 4 was more like the BBL. It wasn't so much college basketball. But it was, those tapes were like gold dust. You couldn't just go on YouTube like you can now and just watch games. So, just waiting for that VCR tape to come through the door, sticking it in the VCR and just watching it. Yeah.
Was there, amongst you and your peers, was there a lot of awareness about, you mentioned there, Steve Bucknell and Carl Brown, kind of not just them, but other British guys that were performing and doing well that kind of you guys were looking up to, whether it be in the States or in Europe or even domestically?
I kind of want to say, because of my age, that the level of players above me was the Bucknells, the Carl Browns, because even Amici, he started after me. So before the Bucknells and things, never lost in Roger Huggins. I don't really know of the people above them. So I wasn't watching those people. I know there is some people, maybe like Clyde Vaughan and different people, but to me, it was that generation, because they're maybe 6 years older than me or whatever. So they was the generation above us that we was looking at in the States.
Well, what do you remember, watching tapes of whether it's Bucknell at UNC or Carl Brown at Georgia Tech, kind of what are those memories that you have of seeing them, on the college stage?
Well, obviously, both of them played such big time basketball. Book at Carolina, that's where Jordan played, Worthy, and everyone else. You couldn't get a bigger stage. Watching them games against Duke and everything else, you just cannot get a bigger stage than that. Then obviously Carl Brown, playing at Georgia Tech, going to the Final Four, playing with Kenny Anderson. It was unbelievable. It was just it was stuff dreams are made of.
How do you think? Obviously now we're in a space where every year, on Hoopsfix we'll publish a list of all the British basketball players that are in the US college system. It's getting pretty lengthy. There's a lot of guys that are obviously doing great, and for the younger players that are coming through, it's a lot more accessible, right? They can watch highlights on YouTube, as you were saying. Yeah. They can access full games if they want to on the ESPN player or wherever. Kind of how do you think it differs? Do you feel like the younger generation coming through are looking to those guys still in the States as their sort of inspirational role models, and then using it as something to drive them to try and get to the same place? How would you compare kind of the two eras?
You mean my era and their era?
Yeah, how it was back in your day when you'd look at US college athletes, British US college athletes, compared to now.
I'd say there wasn't really a pathway to get to the States, to get from A to B in my generation. There wasn't a pathway. You couldn't just upload your video on YouTube or send it to an agent and get recruited. It was practically impossible to get. There was only a handful of people, I would say, in the States when I was 14, 15, 16, maybe 5. Now you say the list is lengthy, very, very lengthy. There's 100, 200, 300 people. But back then, I'm sure it was less than 10. So there just wasn't a pathway.
Do you think that's good for the game? Like with more players in the US college system? Do you think it's good for the British game?
Definitely, because it shows how much the game's progressed.
Yeah,
It's unbelievable how many guys. If you look back then, how many guys were playing D1, and look now, how many guys are playing D1. It's probably a 95% increase.
Yeah,
which is definitely good. It shows how far the game's come.
Do you think we would ever? There's been a lot of debate recently. I don't know. A few months ago, we did a BBL owners podcast, and there was a whole conversation about whether if you want to be a pro, whether the best option is to go to the States compared to staying in the UK and signing with BBL club for 4 years and playing as a pro for that period of time instead. And I think there's also an argument. Well, I think one of the reasons the game struggles in this country is all of our best players leave as soon as they can, right? Whether it's going to the States or going to Europe, and then as a result you get, whether you want to call it a brain drain or whatever, that then the domestic game suffers because then you don't have those players playing at home. I'd be interested. What's your kind of take on that whole situation? Do you think that having so many players leaving, does it negatively affect the game here, or do you think that actually them playing at the highest level possible for themselves has a positive impact because they'll improve more than potentially they might here, and then when they do come back, they're of a higher level, which will help grow and raise the game here?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a few different pathways, isn't there? Like you said, staying here, going to like academies, playing in the BBL, or another pathway going to Europe, like Devin Van Oostrum, people like that. Miles Hessen, somebody that stayed here and then done very well over there, or going to the States. All good options. My preference is 100% the States, unless you go to a big club in Europe and you're in the academy and come up. My preference would be the States, because it's not just the basketball, which is top notch. It's the social aspect as well. Like those years of college, on and off the court, you're just never going to get that back. Even playing in front of all those people. I played, a long time professionally, and I don't think we ever played in any type of atmosphere that was like in college. But it also is important to go to the right college and be lucky enough to find yourself in the right situation, because a lot of guys go there and don't play, end up coming home. So it's not just go over there anywhere. You have to be really fortunate where you go. Yeah,
100%. So your journey you started going to high school, right? It was before you didn't go straight to college. You ended up at high school. That move to high school actually came about through the Rotary organization, right?
Yeah, it came about indirectly through going to the basketball camps that I mentioned before. My brother winning an MVP at a camp, my older brother, and through him going to camps at CW Post in Villanova, he befriended a college coach, and that's how we got the link for me to go over there. But yes, it was through the Rotary Club. The Rotary Club sponsored me as an international exchange student.
And what explain for people that haven't heard of the Rotary Club, like what is it? How does it work?
An exchange student. So the Rotary Club, every town basically has a Rotary Club. It's all businessmen that kind of own all businesses within the town. They meet once a week, do charitable events and things. And as an international exchange student, you go over to America, you stay with 2 or 3 host families for the year. You have obligations. You have to go to these meetings every week through the Rotary Club. And then also somebody comes over and stays with your family, and you host them all free of charge. But it's just for experience. It's just for experience of another culture, another country.
So it wasn't actually like it was almost like you had to sell it on the experience as opposed to you were doing it for the basketball, right?
Yeah, definitely, because through red tape and things, you wasn't allowed to go over there just for basketball. That was kind of illegal. You couldn't do, you couldn't do it. And so it had to be under that guy's.
And so how did it work with the coach? The coach basically, did the coach that you met through the camps or whatever kind of said
through
this
my
is
brother, yeah.
Yeah, said this is a potential option. Like you could look into the Rotary Club, and then you had to then go through the process of applying. Did you find a high school that was local to a specific area, or were you open to going to wherever?
I was open to going to wherever. I was supposed to go the year before, so that would have been my junior year. But that fell through because of the red tape I talked about. You just wasn't allowed to go over there and just say I wanted to play basketball. So after it fell through the first year, we found out, you could do it through the Rotary Club as an international exchange student. So then we had to go through all that process. And I knew with the school I was going to because it was the coach was a friend of my brother's. So I knew where it was. It was in Ohio, not far from Akron, Ohio.
When you realised that dream of getting to the States, that first step, going to high school, was a reality or about to become a reality, kind of what was your thought process, your mindset, kind of going into that? Like, how did it make you feel? What were your expectations sort of going into it?
Well, it was a dream that I'd had for about 3 or 4 years, maybe longer. I left at 17, just turned 17. I've been dreaming about it since I was about 12. And when it finally became reality, the only way I can describe it is like when you're a child, about 9 years old, and on Christmas Eve, and you're just that excited. You can't sleep because you're excited for Christmas morning. That was the feeling. I just wanted to get to the States, and once I got there, then I would try and make it happen. But I just had to get there.
And were you already linked with the high school that you ended up going to? Did you already have that link, and you knew that you were going to be playing for their team?
Yeah. So because my brother was friends with the head coach, I knew exactly which school I was going to. So he would be liaising with me over the year, sending me pictures, sending me the media guide, telling me all about the team, telling me who my host family was going to be, so I could research the area and things. So yeah, I knew exactly where I was going, in a really small town in East Central Ohio.
And then touching down in the States, kind of what were your first sort of early memories of getting to the US? The cultural differences, how you felt you made the transition, whether or not you missed home, like those first few months, I guess. How were they for you?
Well, my first experience was spending a week at University of Tennessee, because I went to University of Tennessee because I knew the assistant coach. So I went there before I even went to where I was supposed to go. Mm-hmm. And that was the week that I met Allen Houston and became really good friends with him. So that was my first experience that week. So that was just unbelievable, being at a Division I university, 25,000 seat arena, 100,000 seat football arena. So that was my first experience. And I was just blown away. Then after that, I went to high school, and then pretty much it was just straight into the training. It was a small town, small school, so it wasn't so much of a culture shock. We're just getting straight into practice and training, and the games, it just came straight away, really.
When you speak about your own ability and how you were matching up on the court, did you feel, was there any part of you, like at practices and stuff, that felt that you're out of your depth, or did you feel like you made that transition pretty smoothly and it was relatively easy?
To tell you the truth, I was a late developer, so I was about 6'3", really skinny. Within 3 months, with all the meals you get over there, the pancakes and everything else, I put on about 20 pounds, and I grew 3 inches within 3 months. So I went 6'6". I could jump finally now, and I got a lot quicker because we was doing weight training every day and athletics and everything. So to be fair, I really progressed really quickly. Yeah,
you see a lot guys going to the States and within a few months put on weight very quickly, because I think just the portion sizes and the frequency of meals, and then obviously also like training, like weight training, which I think is, especially back then, I think in the UK we probably take it a lot more serious than we used to, but back then it was something that was always part of American culture, but has not been so much here, And then kind of like off the court, like how did you find that? Like you said, it's a very small town. I guess for context, and you did speak about this a lot in the book, but I think it'd be interesting to kind of give people your own background. Growing up where you grew up, how do you even pronounce it? Is Widnes?
Witness.
Widnes?
Witness.
Widnes?
Yeah. Rugby town.
Rugby town.
Yeah, it's like.
You go on.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, it's big rugby town, rugby league. It's like 10, 15 minutes from Liverpool, 25, 30 minutes away from Manchester. About 100,000 people. So not really that small. And then I was going to a town which was really small in the States. Very small town.
When you say small, how small are we talking?
I might guess and say maybe 8,000 people, 10,000 people,
wow.
1,000 people in the high school, just one high school.
Wow.
As that was split between two towns.
Yeah.
Maybe. I could be wrong on the facts there. I'd have to fact check that, but it's very small.
Yeah.
Very small town. Twin towns.
Yeah, so it's super small town. And, the other thing which you speak about a lot in the book is of course race, like being mixed race, going up in Widnes, which is predominantly white, and then of course going to what was the name of the town that you moved to in the States?
Uriksville,
and it was a very similar story, right? Predominantly white as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just a lot smaller version. Yeah.
How did you feel your race played into kind of the situations that you were in high school playing basketball? Like, of course, there were some pretty crazy things that happened. Like, I'd be interested to kind of hear your perspective and how you felt going into a predominantly white environment, which obviously you'd been in England, but then to go in the States, like whether it was much different to England or whether it was a similar type of thing, like kind of, I'll be interested to hear kind of your take on the two environments and how they differed or compared.
Yeah, so even though I grew up in Widnes, I played basketball in Manchester since I was about 12 in Moss Side, and all my friends were from there. They was all on the team, so I was around a lot of black people, and all of my team was predominantly black. But obviously going over to the town in the States, there was only like 2 other black people on the team, about 9 black people in the school. So it was very different. All the people were great, at first, everyone's friendly, but it was only later on where certain things started to happen, where you could tell that, wow, it was more racist in England. I definitely felt that at the time.
What caused the change? Like you said, you were kind of welcome to begin with, and then was it a case of the success that you were having, and then there was sort of jealousy, or like what in your mind? What was it that caused that change?
I would just say a few bad apples, really, just a few bad apples, and also things like. One thing, like I mentioned in the book, was that I noticed different was dating different races. That wasn't seen. That wasn't really allowed. It was made quite clear that's not really allowed. That's not really what goes on around here. So that kind of shocked me, really, because you don't really see that so much in England. But that was the main thing, underlying tone of you don't really date outside your race over here.
When this stuff was becoming apparent to you, was there any part of you that made you think, forget this, like I want to go back to England, or was it very much a case of, well, I'm chasing my dreams, I still want to make the NBA and do all these great things within basketball, and I'm doing that regardless of what you say or whatever you do?
Oh yeah, I was just looking forward to getting to a bigger city. After high school, I was like, I want to go to a bigger city, a little bit more culture. But no, there was no way I thought about coming home. Not for a second. I was gonna, make my dreams happen. So.
And then on the court, your time at high school, like, what are your sort of biggest memories that stand out? And I guess the sort of key performances, if any, key moments. And then at what point did the colleges come knocking?
Luckily, my high school coach, was a really good friend of mine. He was great because even in the preseason, he had a lot of obviously college coaches, friends. So he would bring them down in the preseason to all these inter-squad scrimmages. He had, friends at Villanova, Cincinnati, Northern Iowa. So these coaches would come down in the preseason and watch me play then. So right from the start, I was a little bit on the radar. High school games went really well. My first game, luckily, I had a really good game. My very first game. The first basket of the season was a dunk, and I think I finished with like 20 points, 10 rebounds in the very first game. So, because it was a little bit nerve-wracking going in. There's like 1,000 people there. We're not used to playing in front of that like, under 17 level, under 18 level. So it was good that I didn't fall flat on my face in the first game. And from then it kind of, it went well for the rest of the season.
Did you feel like high school basketball was what you expected it to be?
Yeah, I would say I'm more. Even things like the pep rallies, the whole school gets involved, the whole town gets involved. It's on TV, it's in the newspaper. It's just unbelievable. It was probably bigger than I expected, and we was, like a small school, even though, we had like a 1,100 seat arena, but that's small, So, we played in front of 2,500 people sometimes. But yeah, it was unbelievable, and I knew it was a small area, so I knew it was way bigger in Indiana and other places.
What do you think the key things were that contributed to your own skill development and development of your own basketball IQ game over those years?
The first year, just the intensity and the level of competition in high school. Obviously, going to college is like a whole nother thing, going to D1 college, and the level of players at college, playing against them every day, and just not letting up. They're trying to beat up the freshmen, and you play and pick up ball and everything. It's just like, the upperclassmen don't give you any love. So it's just like, you better get with the program or go home. So, yeah.
Did you find there was a big difference in the mentality between American players and English players?
Yeah, definitely. It's life or death for some of them. You got guys in college, they're from the hood, their friends have been shot, killed, friends drug dealers, trying to escape gangs, everything else. So, and they're out of state, life or death really, because if they go home, they're getting phone calls like, oh, this happened, that happened. So you just see the seriousness of it, and also how hard they play and how seriously they take the game. So that was just, you saw that was evident straight away, really, with the majority of players.
So what was your recruiting process like for college? Like, I'm pretty sure that you ended up knowing where you wanted to go pretty early on in the process. But yeah, like, can you kind of recap which schools were interested, how you made the decision that you made, and how it all sort of played out?
So I had a few schools interested early, maybe like Niagara, Canisius College, a lot of schools around like that East Coast area. But because we got knocked out in the high school tournament, we got knocked out prematurely in the first round or quarterfinals or something. So we didn't progress all the way to the state. So we didn't get much exposure as we wanted. So it kind of dipped down a little bit then, my recruiting. And it wasn't until at the end of the season, when we had an all-star game, after the season finished, that's when I got recruited. That's when I got saw by Wright State, who actually was there looking at a guy on the other team. And they just saw me because I was on the radio. I didn't go on any 5-star camps, AAU, anything like that. So I was quite under the radar.
Yeah, that's right.
I'd only been there maybe 6 months. Yeah.
It was almost looking like at the end of that season, you didn't have any offers. You potentially weren't going to go to college, and then it happened that there was this all-star game in which you ended up putting on a bit of a show, and from there, that is ultimately what was that after your senior year?
I was only there for 1 year, so that was at the end of the season. There was an all-star game at the end of the season.
Okay, what did you finish with in that all-star game?
I think it was just like 15 points, 8 rebounds or something. But it was like a dunk contest at halftime where they caught the coach's eye and just playing the point a little bit and dribbling, coming down and shooting some threes, hitting some threes, and just a few things that maybe they'd not seen me do earlier on. I probably had a few others. I think it was like Akron and Kent State and Niagara and Canisius. Maybe I had those 4 before. But then Wright State came along, which was like a bigger school out the blue, really. So it was amazing.
Was it just the fact that it was a bigger school? Like, what made you want to go to Wright State over the others that were interested in you?
I went on a visit. They flew me down there literally like the next week. And when I walked into the arena, it's called Irving J. Nutter Center, 11,000 seat arena, state of the art. And when I saw that, even now, today, it's state of the art. But back then, what was that, 20, 30 years ago, whatever it was a beautiful building, like absolutely unbelievable. When I saw that arena looking down, I said, this is where I want to play. And then also they also had a very good player called Bill Edwards. Bill Edwards was potentially an NBA player. He was going to be a junior, and there was going to be a lot of interest, a lot of NBA scouts going to the games. They wanted me to kind of replace him after he left because we were similar positions. So all that really, in a nutshell, I was like, yeah, that's for me. So then I signed then.
And then your first year, you ended up redshirting, right? What was the thought process that went into that? Was that partly because of the fact that Edwards was there, he was in your position, so you would get another year to play when obviously you wouldn't be playing behind him?
Exactly the reason. And I was still really skinny. So one of the coaches said, well, kind of a compliment in a way. One of the coaches from Northern Iowa, I think it was Eldon Miller, said, if I was a stone heavier, every college in the country would recruit me. But I was just a little bit too light. I mean, I was still a little bit too skinny for that level, for top level D1. So I redshirted to put on some more weight, and because Billette was only going to be a junior, I believe, at that time.
That process to put on weight, just out of interest, because there are plenty of young kids that have very high metabolism and are unable to or struggle to put on weight, put on muscle. Like, what was the process like? How was it approached with you and I guess the strength and conditioning coach, if that's who it was that was overseeing it, and what, if any, when you're talking about the weight that you were able to put on over the course of that redshirt year, what were you able to achieve?
To be fair, I don't think it was a lot, if I'm honest. I'm one of the people with the high metabolism, 5% body fat. I've only put on weight since I retired, so I just really couldn't put on weight. It was more like learning the game, getting experience, the speed of the game. Obviously, I got stronger, lifting weights got stronger, but I was definitely one of them guys that really couldn't put on weight. Just getting stronger, but you wouldn't really see a lot. I'm not sure how I maybe put on 10 pounds, maybe, but it wasn't really something majorly significant.
Yeah,
it was more just learning the game and then things like that.
Do you feel like how do you think you benefited from that year? You're talking about learning the game. Like, how is it without actually playing competitively in the season games, in the actual competitive games? How do you approach it differently to ensure that whatever it is that you're learning will definitely be transferable, when you do get onto the court, into game situations?
It takes a lot of pressure off you. Because you know that, you're competing in practice every single day. You're watching the games, you're there sat on the bench, you're watching people's mistakes, you're watching, everything that you think, you should do and you could do. I would advise anybody to do it really if they had that opportunity, because you get a whole extra years. It's not just the basketballers. You can spread your classes out as well, so you can take less classes, so you graduate without the pressure of it taking 5 classes a week. Maybe you can take 3 or 4 classes. Maybe you don't have to stay for summer school, so it just takes the whole workload off you, and you can just learn the plays, learn the systems, go to different arenas. You can see it firsthand, and then the next time you go there the following season, you'll be more comfortable. So just all around it really benefited me and probably a lot of other people.
And then off the court, like, how were you finding university life? Do you remember, first stepping onto campus and kind of, I guess, for you compared to a lot of other students, it was slightly different because you'd already done the whole moving away from home and living independently. Living more independently than you would have done if you were living in England. But yeah, how do you feel like you found the university life sort of off the court and I guess campus life at Wright State?
Yeah, I loved it. Luckily, I had three great other freshmen. Two of them was from Dayton, played at the same high school, and then one of the guys from Indiana. So we had the four of us as a freshman class all hanging around together. It was slightly different at Wright State because we stayed in apartments off campus, so we wasn't in the dorms on campus with all the tight curfews and everything else. So we were quite independent, really.
Yeah.
But it was great. But a lot of it is because of the guys that you're coming in with. So there was like four of us. So we just all hung out together. So it was really good. And then another guy from Europe, a guy called Mike Nahar from Holland, a 7-foot center. So he was kind of like my big brother there. So he took me under his wing in a way.
And then going into it's like your freshman season, but obviously it's not your freshman. It's like it is your freshman season on the court. But
yeah.
So that first year, sort of playing, there was a lot of expectations around the team, right? There was a lot of people believe that you had a chance to do very, very well. Kind of what were your memories going into that season, and how I guess you found it actually finally getting on the court and playing college basketball?
Yeah, you're right. There was loads of excitement about that season. So much so that Midnight Madness, not Namo's one, but Midnight Madness were the start of the season. Dick Vitale, those guys that don't know who he is, they need to go out and research who Dick Vitale is. He came to our school and did our Midnight Madness. So when we had our scrimmage at 12:01, Dick Vitale was there, on the microphone. So that was we knew something special was going to happen that season.
And where were the expectations coming from? Like, why was there all this excitement around the team?
I'd say two reasons. One, a guy called Mark Woods. He wasn't on the team the year before for I forget the reason, but he came back to school. He led the nation in steals and assists up until the last 5 games, I believe, and that was when Jason Kidd was playing. And that era of college basketball. Also, Bill Edwards was predicted a first-round NBA pick. We had the 7-foot center, like I said before, Mike Nahar. Just had a really good team, and people thought we might be able to go to the NCAA tournament.
What were the expectations people had of you personally? Do you remember what people were saying about you before the season started, and then kind of as the season went on, like what people thought that they were going to be getting from this English kid?
I probably think that they thought I'd be pretty solid in the next couple of years. Obviously, Bill Edwards was going to dominate, and Mark Woods, Sean Hammonds, power forward, and different people. I think they thought in a few years I'd be able to maybe take over from where Bill left off. But what happened, unfortunately, for Sean Hammonds, who was our starting power forward, 3rd game of the season, he dislocated his knee. So I was maybe playing 10, 15 minutes a game before that. He dislocated his knee in the 3rd game of the season, which was just one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. And that indirectly pushed me into the starting lineup. So it was a surprise. I think I started 10 games, 5 early on, and then the last 5 of the season, like in the NCAA tournament and stuff. But I probably played 20, 25 minutes a game. So I probably played a lot more than people expected, really.
And do you feel like people were perceiving your performances positively? Like, obviously you were playing more, but were you performing in a way that they felt was up to your potential?
I would say so, yeah. I had some really solid games. But the dominance of Bill Edwards, unbelievable. 45-point games, 38-point games. He averaged 25 points, 10 rebounds a game. So he was 5th leading scorer in the nation. Or point guard was leading the nation in steals and assists. We averaged 93 points a game. We're 3rd in the nation in scoring. So I would always do my thing. But obviously, we've got some stars on our team, so
Yeah.
I just did my role as usual.
So how did that season end up playing out?
We won the conference tournament. Bill Edwards, he had like 38 points in the conference final, and that led us to the NCAA tournament, where we faced Indiana Hoosiers, who were number one in America. Unfortunately, in Indianapolis, their
And
home court.
we have to talk about how many fans you played in front of.
Well, what I always tell people, the practice, so the shoot around the day before the game, an hour slot, everyone had an hour slot. Just in the shoot around, there was 20,000 people in the Hoosier Dome in Indiana. 20,000. Unbelievable.
And then
at the game, sorry.
Go on in the game,
43,000.
Unreal. Well, like, how can you even begin to describe that? Like, for someone like me, who's, I don't even know if I've ever been in an arena with 43,000 people in it, but to be actually
football stadium.
Yeah, but I'm trying to. Yeah, possibly actually. But to be part of a basketball team that's on the center stage, kind of like, what are your memories? Can you remember looking up and looking around and just being mesmerized by it all? Like, were you scared? Like, were you nervous? Like, talk about kind of the feelings about playing in front of that many people.
That was the exact moment that I knew that I realized my dream. So from watching, Buck, Carl Brown, them guys playing at that center stage like that, when I was 14 years old and dreaming, it was like you pinching yourself, like, am I really here? Am I really here? And fortunately, I was starting as a freshman, so it wasn't like I was just on the end of the bench thinking, oh, I hope I get in. So I knew I was starting in the game. And it was bittersweet because my dad had died literally about 3 or 4 days before. So it was one of them things where I actually wasn't as nervous as I thought I should have been, because I don't know, I just kind of, took his death as that was what we'd always planned for me to be playing at that stage. So for some reason, I wasn't as nervous as I normally would have been. So I was able to perform, and just, it was just an unreal experience. Apart from we got spanked. So.
What was the final score on that? Like,
I think we got beat by 37.
Wow.
Like I said, it's Indiana Hoosiers. They was number one in the nation, and Bill Edwards, he had a tough game. I mean, obviously they scouted him. They knew he was, our main player. He didn't have his best performance by any means. So it was just a tough night in the office in front of their home fans. So they had 39,000 fans. We had maybe 4,000. So it's always tough playing in front of their home gym,
Yeah, it must, like, going into the game, you're obviously, well, Indiana are overwhelming favourites. You're the massive underdogs. I assume, you guys, you knew that. But I guess what's the mentality going in? Like, going in, do you feel like you as a team believed that you had a chance to win? Or was it a case of, they're way too talented, we're not going to be able to win, but let's just, do our best, try and keep it respectable, and that's that?
I think the first game of the season, we played Kentucky, University of Kentucky in the Rupp Arena in front of like 23,000. And they was number one in the nation at that time. And I think we were down like 5 points with 5 minutes left. So we knew that was when they had Jamal Mashburn and Roderick Rhodes, I think, and them guys. So we knew we could hang with teams at that level if we performed and played smart. But I think Bill coming out and having such a tough time, a lot of it because, their defense just totally, focused in on him. We didn't get off to a great start, so they come out, and then from then it was a little bit downhill.
It's tough. Like when you have a player of his caliber, there is I don't know whether the over-reliance is the right word, but of course it means that everyone plays certain roles, right? And then all of a sudden, actually if your main weapon is neutralized, and then all of a sudden you've got guys that are not used to needing to take more shots or sort of be the guy in those positions, it makes it a lot harder to succeed. Do you feel like that ended up sort of contributing to the difficulties you had because of the fact that, you know, in the rest of your roles across the team, you were used to just relying on Edwards so much?
Yeah. I, you know, also, you know, our other main players, Mark Woods, Mike Nahar, but yeah, you're right in what you said. But also, I think because they was playing in the backyard, you know, it's an NCAA tournament. We could have been playing in California, or we could have been sent anywhere. But we were sent 2 hours down the road to Indianapolis, which was their home gym. You know, with this, you know, 40 odd thousand, you know, home supporters. That you know, as soon as they got off to a little roll at the start of the game, that was it. The crowd is just crazy the whole time then. So that gives them so much confidence. So that was one of the main factors as well, I think.
Coming out of your freshman year, going to sophomore year, kind of, what are the lessons that you took from your freshman year going into your sophomore year, and what were your, I guess, expectations going into your second year on the court? Oh, we lost you.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah, the expectations was obviously we knew we would losing a lot of firepower. Like, you know, maybe 3 or 4 seniors were leaving. So obviously the expectations was probably not as high as, you know, obviously the season before. But coming off that season we had, and we had a lot more confidence and obviously experience. And I was excited, you know, because obviously now I was thrust more into the forefront as, you know, a main player. So it was exciting, really. It was exciting, but the season didn't quite turn out how we planned. But it was a very tough season, I think, to be honest, my sophomore year. Yeah.
Why was it such a difficult season?
I think I played a lot, I think, but our record wasn't so good. I can't remember our records exactly, but I think we was only like 500. When the season before we were 27 and 9 or something the year before, and then going to like 500, maybe like 15 or something like that. So, you know, you're losing, you know, big time players. So, you know, so obviously it's a rebuilding year in a way. So it was just, that's how it is, really.
Were you able to take on a bigger role on the team, and as a result have, you know, better individual numbers, even if the team success wasn't there?
Yeah, I definitely played a lot. My stats were pretty much similar, really, throughout my whole career. It was basically like 7 points my freshman year, and then like 9-10 points the rest of my career. So for some reason, it was always, you know, similar, even though I played a lot more. My problem was I didn't take a lot of shots. That was just like my fault. You know what I mean? I just was too unselfish. I was too unselfish. So
yeah,
that's why my stats weren't so much higher.
I was going to say that you spoke about that in your book, that kind of, if you're going to sort of, I guess, take a criticism that you felt looking back that you maybe would do differently, was the fact that you were so unselfish and at times you needed to shoot more and sort of, I guess, be more ball dominant, if you want to call it that. Why do you think that was? Why do you think it was that you sort of defaulted to being so unselfish on the court?
I think a few different reasons. I think one of them is the fact that pretty much I grew up being a point guard. So all my early years before I went to the States, I was a point guard. So that's just kind of how I played. I like to drive and kick and things. So I'd be driving to the basket and kicking it even though I'm wide open for the layup, and coach would be like, "Oh, you're wide open," you know. So that was just kind of my mentality, and not as like a scorer. You know, like where me and Yorick are completely different players, because you know, we grew up playing together. He's a pure scorer. I was just more, you know, my mentality was just more like assists. That was one reason. Probably also not having a coach that really, really supported you. I've had coaches before playing in England, national teams, like people like Curtis Xavier and certain other people, where they've been like, you need to score. So I would score, but they had to really tell me to do it. It wasn't just something that kind of I could do it. It just wasn't really in my mentality to just go out and score. So, so I think it was a combination of a few things, really.
Your nickname, Mr Versatility, because of the fact that you were able to, stuff the stats, stuff the box score. When did that first come about? How did that come about?
I would say when I played in Europe, because in England I played the point. When I played in high school in the States, I played the 2. When I played at Wright State, I played the 3. And it was a few years into my pro career where I was bouncing around from team to team. My agent sending me to different places, and they need a 4-man. Well, I'm not a 4-man. Well, you can play the 4 over there, in Germany or whatever. So it was through getting certain jobs through my agent where I had to play different positions. So that's what happened. So then I ended up being able to play all different positions. Even though I didn't like it, I really didn't like it a lot of times, especially not when I had to play the 4 for many years, maybe 4 seasons. I had to play the power forward. So then that would, I'd lose confidence in my outside shot and things, and my ball handling and different things, because you're just stuck with the big men every day for like 3 or 4 years. It was a completely different thing. So that's kind of where that came from.
Right. I'm trying to think. I feel like even though I finished the book probably last week, but I'm already, there's parts of it that I'm not sure which bit was which. Am I right in thinking? Correct me if I'm wrong. But did you have a few? There were a few games. I think it was at college rather than in the pros. Well, you probably did it in the pros as well. But there was a few games at college where you did come particularly close to getting a triple double, right?
Yeah. I always missed it by one assist. Yeah, there was 2 or 3 times it was like, I missed it by like an assist.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm aware of time, but I do want to. We can't talk about college without talking about the shot. So can you, for people that have got no idea about it, give us the context, the game that it happened in, the situation, and then I guess your memory of how it all played out, whether or not that was exactly how it was drawn up. Just kind of, I guess, talk us through it, give us a story time, so that the viewer, the listener can get an idea of exactly what happened, and I guess is the biggest shot of your career, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So in context, Xavier, they were the top team in our conference by far, undefeated, top 25 in America. And every time we played them, we had a battle. So we're in Dayton, they're in Cincinnati. So it's only 45 minutes away. So we played them close throughout the season, really, really close games. And the conference tournament was held at our school. And they was a bit mad about that because they was 14-0, 23rd in the nation. And they thought, well, why is the tournament being at Wright State? Because we was number 8 seed to go in the tournament. So actually we was tied 8th seed. So we had to play on a Thursday, play against the other 8th seed just to get into the tournament. So we ended up beating that team. So then we became the 8th seed. So then the next game we had to play number 1 seed, which was Xavier, who they'd previously beaten us twice during the season, but only by like 8 points and 12 points. So it was quite close, both games. So this game, obviously, if we lost the game, the season was finished. We'd had not a very good season. We had a NBA prospect center, Vitaly Potapenko from Ukraine, but that season, that was his first year there, but the season didn't go well. We were, I think, 13 and 15 or something, and we had a terrible season. So this was a way of reigniting our season with this game, because if we lost, the season was finished. So that it came about. The game was close. We were leading at halftime. And then with 7 minutes to go in the game, Vitaly Potapenko, who was our star player, got drafted first round, number 11 pick, lottery pick. He fouled out with 7 minutes to go. So then we kind of, people thought we fell apart a little bit. I got into a little altercation with one of my teammates. But then after that, we just kept playing. We were very small, really small lineup. I think I was the tallest player at like 6'6". So we had a really small lineup, and the game went all the way down to the wire. We were down 1.70 to 69 with like 3 seconds left. Ball got knocked out of bounds. Then there was 1 second left. And then we had to throw the ball all the way from the end of the court with a second left, and I had to catch it and score in order for us to knock off Xavier. And luckily, that's what happened with a play that was actually drawn up for Vitali called home run. He was supposed to receive the ball, turn around and shoot, but obviously he was on the bench. So I got put in that position, and my good friend and teammate, John Ramey, threw the perfect pass. And luckily, the shot clock didn't expire by the time it went through the net. So it was a fairy tale. Yeah, fairy tale. So the place erupted, and we lived to fight another day.
Seeing that ball go through the hoop, like, can you still see it in your head now? Like, try and describe to us that feeling. That is the ultimate dream, right? Every kid, I remember when I was younger, when you're on the court and you count down yourself, you're 3, 2, 1, and you pretend you're hitting some game-winning shot at the buzzer. Like, kind of what were your emotions at that point, knowing that you'd just hit the shot of a lifetime?
I think it was a feeling of finally I'm here. Finally, I'm at this level. After all the hard work, after the death of my dad, the terrible season, biding my time. It was just finally, after all the negative stuff had happened, because it wasn't all great, all the things. It was just finally like a deep breath. It was just finally like, I'm here. I'm finally here. Like all the dreams, everything else, I'm finally on this stage. And the fact that I thought there wasn't enough time left. I thought that was it. We don't have enough time. And then, because it was like a 1.1 second, I was like, oh, season's finished. Oh, what we're going to do. And then in a split second, we're like, wow, we're going, maybe go to the NCAA now. So it's just an unbelievable experience.
What was the reaction like to that shot? Like, when you talk about media coverage, other people taking note, do you think, was the basketball community in the UK aware that you hit it? Was there coverage in the UK? Like, I guess what was the sort of the knowledge about it within the global, and I guess the media coverage as well, just locally, for you?
I'm not sure about the UK. I don't exactly know what was going on there in like 95, but what I do know is that in the States it was crazy. My former teammate Bill Edwards, he was playing professionally in Italy, and he called me and said that it was just live on CNN. He'd seen it on CNN, and then ESPN broke it into their like North Carolina Duke game, and showed it live on their game. And then it was ESPN Player of the Week. So in the States, it was crazy, absolutely crazy.
Wow.
But like I said, I don't know what happened in the UK. Did they even have YouTube then?
Yeah,
I don't know if they had YouTube.
Some things never change. Were you? So that was your junior year, right?
Yeah, that was the end of my junior year.
That was the end of your junior year. Kind of when you talk about your own aspirations within basketball at this point, were you still hoping that you were going to go to the NBA?
End of my junior year, yeah. But I would say what changed that for me is when Vitali came to our school, who was 6'10", 300-pound NBA specimen. When he came to the school, the whole focus was, just get him to the NBA. So it kind of changed, so that it kind of the spotlight went away from me a little bit, and more. All the focus was on him, really. So then I kind of realized that I probably won't make it to the NBA, because of the way my head coach wanted to play. As in give the ball to the center all the time and not really let too many other people shine. So because of that, I kind of realized that I'm probably not going to make it to the NBA.
Do you feel like you had the ability and talent?
Yeah, I just needed to be a better shooter. more confident shooter. That was the weakness. The weakness was the confident 3-point shot. That was the missing link there. Consistent 3-point shot.
Were you aware of that? Like, obviously, now years later, I think for everyone, it's easier to look back and say, and be able to look at it sort of a bit more removed from the situation, right? At the time, do you feel like you were aware of that as a big weakness in your game?
I'll say yes and no, because I think as a player and now as a coach, a lot of it is to do with your coach, meaning some coaches give you confidence and some players ignore the coach and just shoot the ball anyway. Let's say, I don't care if the coach tells me to shoot or not, I'm going to shoot. But I realize that that's going to get you on the bench real quick. So if your coach doesn't have a lot of confidence in you, and if you take 1 or 2 shots, he's going to pull you out of the game, it makes you think twice. And it's those little things. Or if you have another coach that really gives you confidence where he feels you need it, like, gives you a little bit of the green light, I'll shoot, don't worry if you miss, just little things like that. That can be the difference between somebody being, a great player, great shooter, great whatever.
Yeah. So, like I said, with time, so we need to talk about the pros a bit. Process of turning pro, like, you graduated from Wright State. What were the kind of the immediate steps for you looking at, becoming a professional basketball player? Like, you signed with an agent. What were you thinking in terms of like who to sign with, what the process was? One of the things I like that you said in your book was about the fact that it was hard to find sort of, I guess, financial advice and advice in general about kind of the pathway or what you should be doing, or there's no blueprint necessarily, I guess, or people that you could get advice from. So what was your own process when it came to moving into the pros?
Well, a whole new door opened up. So the Bosman ruling, which a lot of guys in my generation will be aware of, from not being sure if I'll be professional by the time I finished college. This new rule, just as I was finishing college, this new rule came out in the summertime called the Bosman Rule, which basically meant you could play anywhere in the EU if you're English or in the EU without being considered a foreigner. So I could go to Spain and just be considered a Spaniard instead of being an American. So when that came out, they was looking for high-level European players within D1 that could compete at that level. And like we said earlier, there was maybe only 10 of us in the whole US that was playing at that high level who had a passport. So then we became like gold dust. So we could basically pick and choose where we wanted to play. And I signed with a European agent because I thought that would be the best step. Because if I signed with an American one, they'd only have to go to a European one to play in Europe anyway. So it's like cutting out the middleman. So then it was just the advice from them saying where you should play and what offers you have on the table. So it all came out of nowhere. It was after my senior season, everything just opened up. It was the timing was perfect.
Did the Bosman ruling happen? Like, was it a case of you finished college, the Bosman ruling hadn't happened yet, so at that point it was actually looking, I don't know whether I'm gonna have offers to play in Europe or whatever, and then the Bosman ruling happened, and of course it changed everything? Or did it happen whilst you were still at college?
Season finished March. I would say this happened maybe like April or May.
Oh, really?
So around then, it wasn't too long after. I can't be specific. It might have been about May time.
Yeah.
Suddenly, I had all these phone calls from people I didn't even know, just calling all agents saying, "Oh, this rule's happened. Da da da. Sign with us. Sign with us. Sign with us." So I went from maybe thinking, "Oh, I'm going to have to play in the BBL." No disrespect to the BBL, but I wanted to, play in Europe after playing in the States. So I think I was going to play for Sheffield Sharks, come home and play for Sheffield. And then I had all these phone calls coming up from all these agents, and then so just a whole nother world was opened up, and it was just really exciting. And one of the main decisions was, do I go over there then and finish the season? Like, I had a contract to go to Victoria Tarragas in the ACB in Spain to finish that season, i.e. May, June, or do I wait till September and go for the whole season? So that was the main thing I had to think about.
And what did you decide, and why did you make the decision that you made?
It was too risky to go to the ACB, even though the money was ridiculous for like 2 months, because your stock could drop. My stock was very high at that time, so was the other players. If you went to like a team at the end of the season during playoffs, didn't fit in, didn't do well, then therefore your stock would be dropped. By September, you couldn't demand the same type of money. Yeah. So if you just waited it out, go somewhere fresh for the new season, that was the smartest thing to do. So that's what I decided to do.
And the other thing that I thought was interesting in your book, and I appreciated, was the fact that you spoke about the numbers, which is always hard to do in terms of getting figures from players in terms of salaries, which is one of the things that
people lie. People lie. I mean,
and yeah, you put in there, your agent come and told you he reckons that you can get 100,000 net. That was US, so that's, at that time was probably what equate to about £75,000 ish, 75,000 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that your first rookie contract ended up being, was it 90,000 US net?
Yeah.
Which
90,000.
Yeah, go on.
Car and apartment, yeah. But the difference is, like, now we work in a real world, and you have to pay taxes and gross and everything. Yeah, the contracts were all net. I didn't know what tax was.
Yeah,
the clubs pay the tax, but yeah, it's a big difference, huge difference.
And of course, I mean, this was obviously before a time when the European basketball market is nowhere near, doesn't pay for a lot of guys, won't pay anywhere near that. Nowadays, I think it was a very, very different period, but still, like, to have the context on those figures is super inspiring. I think for a lot of young players to know that you can earn good money playing basketball, right? The other thing is, wasn't it you ended up? You said, I think you said that in your local paper back home they had written a news article after you'd won your rookie contract, sort of detailing the amount of money it was for as well, saying 65,000 was it slam dunk or some type of headline like that?
Yeah. £65,000 slam dunk. Yeah.
What made you decide to go public with your salary figure?
I didn't see a reason to hide it, really. They asked me, what the contract was like. Was it lucrative? And I just told them the figure. But that figure was nothing. That figure was nothing compared to my former teammates, the money they were making.
Really?
It was like, it was not even close. So it was at the very lower end of the scale.
Wow.
Yeah. Even in Italy, our team had the lowest budget in the whole first division. And so you're playing against guys making $500,000, making $1 million, so it was like, that was small change over there at that time.
Did you feel like you were on track to be able to get those £500,000, £1 million contracts within the coming years? Like, was that kind of on your radar? I mean, you said in the book that, even for you to hear figures of 100,000 being thrown around was pretty unbelievable to you at that point, and it's like, wow, this is, but kind of, like you just said, knowing that there are other guys earning 5, 6, 7, 8 times that. Did you feel like that was in the realms of possibility for you as well?
I was the way I saw it in my mind, I was on 90 first year. I figured 100 to 150 the following year, or in the next couple of years. And then, after that, depending how you play, how you perform, you'd be up there at that couple of $100,000 mark, consistently, really, in that league. That's what I thought. But I actually ended up turning down a 3-year contract, didn't I, in Italy? So, and coming back home, so that's where all that finished. So
that rookie year in Italy, kind of talk about life in the pros. How did you find the transition from college to the professional game? Yeah, like how was it? Was it everything that you had dreamed of?
yes and no. You soon realize it's a job. It's a job. It's a long, hard job for like 9 or 10 months. It's getting up every day, practicing twice a day, 5-6 times a week for 8-9 months a year. And especially like anything else, if you're not winning, a lot of things change. You know, you're not smiling anymore when you go into practice, and teammates are, hanging out with each other and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff that comes in it. It's not like in college when you have all the camaraderie and everyone's the same age, and you go into places where guys have kids, wives, and the older, they're 35 years old, you're like 22, and it's different. It's definitely a job. And like I said, if you're not winning, that's when things kind of start to go downhill. And we weren't winning a lot in that first year. So, there's more pressure and things like that.
Did it grind you down? Like, did you feel like there was any part of you that kind of fell out of love with the game?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. When I was like 23, yeah. I just fell out of love with the game, to be honest. That passion that I had as a teenager, it left through different reasons. Yeah, and that's it really in a nutshell. I just lost that dying passion to try and make it to the NBA. And a lot of that is just like unhappiness through playing on the court, because I say that one of my happiest times was playing at Chester Jets when we won the championship, making, hardly any money compared to that. But you don't think about money and things. You just think about the game and happiness and on the court. And if things aren't going well on the court or off the court, then, it takes a toll.
So did you contemplate quitting?
No, I never contemplated quitting. When I say I fell out of love, I just meant that burning passion where you're willing to do anything to try and make it to the NBA. I lost that passion. I never ever wanted to quit. Well, not nowhere near that time. Maybe way years later. Yeah. But it was just the actual love and desire that you had, like in college or in high school. When you see it's just a grind and it's not much fun sometimes. Through various reasons, it's not much fun. Yeah, a lot of people that's played in a lot of different countries in Europe, some of them will understand that. So,
am I right in thinking your first England senior call up was in your rookie year as well? Was it around the same sort of time?
Yeah, I think it had to be, because you wasn't allowed to play for England when you was in college. So that's why I only got my first men's team cap when I was like 23, when I played in Italy, because you wasn't allowed to play before that.
What are your memories? Like who was coaching the program at that point? And I guess what are your memories of your first call up? Like, how did that make you feel? Talk about kind of like, I guess, representing your country and what that meant to you.
Yeah, Laszlo Nemeth was the coach. Peter Scansbury was the captain, and it was great because I got to play with people that I looked up to when I was young. People like Carl Brown, Steve Butnell. I remember I bumped into Buck in the airport on the way, I think, to meet up with national team. When I introduced myself to him, told him, looked up to you. You helped me get to where I got. And then playing with these guys on the court every day, and just sharing the court with them after guys you'd looked up to since you was a kid. So. That was just great. And another one of them feelings where it's like, I finally made it. I think I finally made it to where I wanted to get to. I always wanted to play in the national team and things like that. So it was good.
Talking about the national team, let's just stay on that for a little bit. So you ended up collecting 77 caps for your country.
Yeah.
I guess when you look back, that was over a 10-year period, culminating in the Commonwealth Games in 2006. Well, obviously you won a bronze medal. When you talk about the standout memories, the sort of most prominent memories in your mind from your time representing England, like what are they? I guess talk us through some of the best ones.
I think it was just the camaraderie of the players. There's some great guys on that team. You're talking about Andy Betts, Roger Huggins, Buttonall, Carl Brown, Yorick Williams, Steve Hansel, all these guys. Every time we all played in different countries in Europe, so every time we met up, like twice a year, it was just great to see everybody, and we just had such great times on and off the court. Tony Dorsey was playing as well. It was just that. It was the camaraderie. Everybody liked each other. Everyone got along. We all loved playing for Laszlo. He was, a really great players coach. And, we're going up against, playing Spain, you're playing Italy, all these, top level teams. It was just fantastic. Really, really, really good experiences.
A lot of, I've obviously spoken to a few of your teammates from that team, from that era, those squads in that era. And everyone speaks so highly of Laszlo as a player's coach. Like, what was it about him what was it that separated him, and what made him loved by the players so much?
He always fought for his players. He always was in our corner. When things weren't going right with the England basketball and things like that, he would always stick up for us. Even pay out of his own pocket if we didn't have the money that we needed, and he'd buy us meals, and he'd just do anything. Always support, always put us first, and everyone will tell you the same thing. So over the whole decade I played, he just always put his players first.
When you talk about most memorable victories that you had with England, are there any that particular come to mind?
Hungary, we played Hungary in Coventry. Obviously, Laszlo's Hungarian. We had to beat Hungary by 7 points. It had to be 6 or more points in order for us to get to the next round or something. And I remember we won by 7 points. And that was again that Roger Huggins injured himself in the first minute of the game. He went up for a rebound, came down, and he was gone. And we didn't have a deep team at that time. We might have only had about 8 or 9 people on the bench. But that victory, we won by 7 points. Another big one was Slovenia. Slovenia had just beaten it. Within the same week, this is how crazy it was, within the same week, Italy beat us by 50. Slovenia beat Italy by X amount, I'm not sure how much. And then we beat Slovenia within the same week of basketball. So that was at Coventry as well, beating Slovenia. Like I said, it just beat Italy. It was one of the best teams at the time. So they're probably the 2 best victories. Oh, apart from obviously the Commonwealth Games one.
Of course. Do you want to talk about the Commonwealth Games briefly? Kind of like, what was that like as an experience? And obviously, ultimately, winning a medal.
That whole experience was just fantastic because it was 18 months in the process building up, going away to Japan one summer, and the whole lead up took 18 months. And then being in the Commonwealth Games, that we was there for a month. It was hard enough just making the team, making the squad of 12, because everybody wanted to make that squad, and then you had people that were naturalised like Fab Flournoy coming in, so it made it even tougher. So just making the squad was just like unbelievable, and then obviously going to Commonwealth Games, being there for a month, and the pressure to win a bronze medal, because it was kind of like you had to win. Nothing else was going to be accepted. You had to come home with a medal, and to finally get that medal against Nigeria, it was just like a culmination of just like finally, we did it, and I kind of knew I was going to retire then at the end of that from national team. So
heading into those games, obviously, you said there you knew that you had to medal. Was there an expectation that potentially you would do better than a bronze? Or yeah, like what were the expectations? I mean, I don't know. I wasn't covering the sport
Yeah,
at that time. I'd be interested to kind of hear.
I think it was pretty realistic. Australia, I think, were ninth in the world at the time. New Zealand, very tough team. I'm not sure where they were. They was probably top 20. It might have been possible to beat New Zealand if you played excellently, but the realistic finish would have been third,
Right.
which is where we came.
Okay. So jumping back to the pro career. Obviously, after that initial rookie year, Trieste ended up. They did offer you a contract again to bring you back, which you ended up turning down. Like, I think is that yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
What happened with that? Talk us through kind of what exactly went down.
What happened with that was we were losing throughout the season. There was 8 games left. We had to win 7 games out of 8 to stay in Division 1. So they fired both our Americans, brought in 2 Yugoslavs, and then I was starting the whole season. So then they benched me and then played the Italians guys in my position. So they just changed the whole thing in order to try and win these last 7 games. So the last 7 games, I really didn't play much. And the general manager offered me a 3-year contract during this time when I wasn't playing. And the coach told me, you're not going to play anymore for the rest of the season. So I was a little bit mad. And so when the general manager offered me a 3-year extension at that particular time when I was actually on the bench, the last 6 games probably, I said no. I said no, I'm not coming back. So that was one of the main reasons why I decided to sign back in the Manchester Giants BBL.
Looking back on it now, do you regret that decision?
And also, I'd been away for 7 years. That was also that was my seventh year away from home. So that was also a reason. What I probably would regret because I had a package deal to play with Roger Huggins. I think it was Ostend in Belgium, and that's what the decision I regret, because he went there and he stayed there 3 years, had a fantastic career, and I turned that job down, and things didn't turn out my way, staying in the BBL and things. So that's probably one decision I do regret is not going with Roger Huggins to that team. Antwerp, sorry, it was Antwerp.
And then, so you ended up signing in Manchester. This was what, like around 97-ish. It was kind of Giants were on the come up, a lot of money being thrown around, budget and everything else. Kind of, how did that play out for you? How was it for you coming home, I guess, and like playing at home for the first time, playing in the BBL for the first time? Was that a good and needed break/return?
Yeah, it was good. Like I said, I've been away 7 years. It was good playing in the hometown, home team, because I played in Manchester when I was younger. That part of it was excellent. But just the playing, the first 3 games, I played 27 minutes within 3 games. So I was having like 9 minutes a game. And I'd probably signed one of the biggest contracts in the country. So I wasn't getting played. And then after the 4th game, I think I played 10 minutes and then I was released. And I said, fine, pay me the money. And then it was like, well, there was a 10-week clause in the contract that I didn't know about because my agent, a European agent, said, don't sign in the BBL. No disrespect to the BBL, but he said, you don't go from first division Italy and then go to the BBL because it'd be hard to get back out. But I ignored him and did that. And then I lost a lot of money in that contract after getting fired. So I was only due the 2 months I was there. So then it was hard to get back on track after that.
How much was that contract worth?
It was a lot of bonuses. It was all towards the tail end of the season. It like judging on wins, like winning this, winning that. then it would have come up to probably a nice amount, depending how much you won. But not as much as what I turned down to play in Belgium, which was $75,000. I turned that down to stay home for less money.
Wow. And originally, when Manchester recruited you, they had kind of sold you on the fact that they were going to build around you, right? But then actually, they ended up recruiting Americans in your position.
Pretty much. But to be fair, I didn't really get the opportunity to play. I didn't really get the opportunity to play that much. So, like I said, I left after 4 games, and I only played 9 minutes a game. So I'm fine if I play 25, 30 minutes a game and you're not producing. Okay, go. But I wasn't really getting played. So
yeah, didn't even feel like you got the shot necessarily.
No.
When you so many parts of this that we're not gonna be able to get to, but kind of when you look at the rest of your pro career, you had time in Germany, Netherlands, France, Austria. One of the things you said in your book was actually the period in the Netherlands. It felt like that was when you first started, I guess, almost feeling settled and were sort of happy where you were basketball-wise. You had a great group of guys that were getting on and kind of, I guess, gave you a level of happiness both on and off the court. Can you kind of talk about your period in the Netherlands and what about it was different and what made you enjoy it so much?
The country, everyone speaks English. A small country, so when you're traveling, obviously you only go in like a couple of hours, for a game. The team I went to was they just won the national championship. Den Helder it was. They was also going to be playing it in the Supporter Cup. So you have the EuroLeague, which is the top league. Then the Supporter Cup was the one just below that. So they were playing. It was the opportunity to play against teams from Italy and other places as well. So it was a great situation to go there. They had 4 Americans, all my age, all played D1. Point guard Tony Miller played at Marquette. I think he's 5th all time in NCAA history in assists, still to this day. So we had a really good team. And like I said, all the guys got on. We were all 25 years old. We're playing in the domestic league, and then we're also playing every Wednesday. We're playing in Italy against Treviso, and we're playing in Austria, and then we're playing everywhere else. So it was just fantastic.
I do want to briefly speak about, we'll speak about the championship year in Chester, because you mentioned that before as well, that you were getting a lot of, I guess, fulfillment there, even though money potentially wasn't as much as you had been earning previously. Kind of what were your memories of that season, and why do you look upon it so fondly?
I decided to come home. My last year I played in Austria, 2003, 4, I think. I decided to come home after about 14 years. And I bought an apartment in Manchester, and I wasn't going to play anywhere else. So if there was a local team that would take me, fine, but I wasn't going to go to Birmingham or anywhere further afield to play. The Jets had already kind of signed everyone, because it was kind of like August, September when I came back. So they kind of didn't have much leeway with the salary cap. So they offered me to play there and to bear with them, because they're trying to free up some room to give me more money and things. So I ended up going down there, just commuting, because it was only like 35, 40 minutes away. And they had a fantastic group of players. And yeah, we were looking to win the championship. And fortunately, that's what we did, yeah.
It kind of feels like at this point, it was like you were almost willing to walk away. Like it was like you were looking for more financial security, more financial stability. And if a team wasn't willing to pay you what you needed to be able to, you've got your flat, you've got your mortgage, cover your bills, and be comfortable enough, then you were going to start looking at sort of other careers.
Yeah, definitely, because that's what happened early in that season. After about 4 or 5 games, when they didn't have the money that they promised, I walked away. I think it might have been after 7 games. I think we were 7-0, and I walked away for about 3 weeks, and I just did a normal job, because I was like, if I'm not getting paid, a half decent salary, I'll go and just work and do it that way. So that's what I did. But after 3 weeks, they called me back, luckily, and then I stayed the rest of the season.
And then your brief stint in Everton as well. I'd like to talk about kind of you had two seasons in Everton. Obviously from the start of the program, like what are your memories of that sort of coming about, and then I guess how it all ended up playing out.
Well, I was shocked, to be honest, because I was shocked to find out completely out of the blue, speaking to Henry Mooney one summer in Toxteth, that the Everton Football Club is going to start a BBL team. And I was like, really? He said, yeah, watch, it's going to happen. And this was literally the same summer. And literally, I think within a month or something like that, it was starting to happen. And I helped him recruit some players and things like that. And I've seen it come into fruition. I really couldn't believe it, to be honest with you. I just didn't believe that, the last time that had happened was when I was about 14 with Manchester United, where we started back then. So it was fantastic that a football club came in. Really, really good situation.
Where do you think it all ended up going wrong?
Well, I think too much money being paid to players and things like that. Not enough income coming in. The usual story. Bills are too big for everything, many coaches, hiring of facilities, not bringing money in through the gate, not getting a bigger sponsor, things like that. But it changed. We had 2 years at Everton. Then it changed to Mersey Tigers. I'd gone by Mersey Tigers, but they obviously won everything. Had some really dominant years, but I'm not too sure exactly what happened with all that because I'd left by then. Yeah. I just know they won everything the first year, maybe the second or third year. It got pulled out or something. I'm not sure exactly what happened.
When it came to you sort of ending up ultimately making the decision to retire, was that a difficult decision, and how did you find that transition away from being a full-time professional basketball player?
So I played the first year, was good. We was all right. I think we finished 8th. Second year, we finished, I think, 2nd. We had 10. I always tell people we had 10 professional players. We had 10 professional players. There was like Tony Dorsey, myself, Olu Babalola, I think James Jones, and a guy called Chuck Evans. We were all starters the year before in any team in any league. We was the 5 on the bench. That's how strong our team was. So we had 10 full-time professionals. So that was the difference, I think, because most other teams didn't do that, and everyone was getting paid good money. And at the end of my second season, Tony Garbelel just said, we're just going to go younger the next year, and so you basically, your services aren't required as a player for the following season. So I didn't try and go to another team in the BBL. I just wanted to stay in the same area. I figured, okay, now it's time to do something else. I'll try and slide into coaching or player coaching, different things like that. The next phase of my life.
Did you find that difficult, or did you find it okay? Were you okay with it? Were you at peace with it?
I was at peace with the playing thing because I knew I could play. I was probably, honestly, in some of the best shape I'd been in years because Tony Garbelel was, great coach. We had top class facilities. We were training 3 or 4 times a day, a lot more than the other teams in the BBL. So I was in fantastic shape. I think I was 35 at the time. I could have gone to another team and played. I had no doubt about that, but I didn't want to travel anymore. I just wanted to stay around, Manchester. So that's why I was at peace with that decision. I was like, just trying to make a living in the area with basketball, but that's hard to do. There's not so many basketball jobs around. So it was tough for a few years, but it's that transition period, isn't it? So
yeah. And now, obviously, we kind of briefly spoke about it before we started recording, but you've been coaching Liverpool basketball club since 2016. Is it 2016?
4 years. 4 years, yeah.
Yeah. and obviously you were doing coaching before that as well. How have you found being a coach? Like when you compare it to being a player, and obviously being able to take those lessons and all the experience that you've had and sort of translating it into guiding and directing other players. Is it something that do you think it's come relatively easy to you? Do you think that it's been more difficult than you expected? Like, how have you found the entire experience?
Generally, I would say I love it. I love the coaching. I just looked at what a lot of my former coaches did and did the opposite to some extent with certain things. I found it quite easy because, as a player, and I'm like a player's coach, definitely a player's coach. I found it quite easy, really. I really enjoy it. I get a lot of satisfaction from it. I didn't expect to go into coaching. I didn't say, "Oh, I'm going to be a coach." I think it happened when I used to play. I used to go to Laszlo's camps, Euro camps, as a player, and he asked us to coach, and it was just gradually I saw, okay, I have a little knack with this. I can relate to the guys and understand the game and how to relate to people and things. And it wasn't something that I set my mind on. Yes, I want to be a coach. It's just something I kind of fell into.
Yeah. And this season, obviously, Liverpool have chosen to take a sabbatical Division 2, right? Because of COVID, that was an option that Barcelona put on the table, and so it's a kind of does that mean it's a year out for you?
Yeah, but at the same venue, I run a basketball academy, which is in the ABL, just below the EBL, the ABL.
That's Archbishop Beck. Is it?
Archbishop Beck. So I'll be doing that full time. So I'll still have my hand at coaching.
Yeah.
I'll just have my weekends free now.
I enjoy it. It's always one of the downsides, isn't it, when you're talking about the basketball in this country, is the fact that you do have to end up sacrificing your weekends and sort of social family time for the game. Right, I'm aware of time, so let's wrap up with some quick fire questions. Starting with the best and favourite coach you ever played for.
Oh, tough one. One is Curtis Xavier when I was young. Curtis Xavier. Joe Welton in Germany.
Best British player that you've played with or played against?
Steve Butnall.
What do you think separates Steve?
He's got a killer desire. I think the main thing to me, what really separates it is the fact for him to get to that level, to get to North Carolina, playing a McDonald's high school All-American game, to get to that level and to start and play, at that level. Obviously, he's done a lot of great things afterwards, but to get at that level coming from England, that's like top notch.
I think I'm
without being 7 foot tall or anything like that,
Yeah. I think I might know the answer to this one, but irrespective of what they did at senior level, but the best British junior player that you've ever seen.
I think Yorick Williams was absolutely tearing it up, but I was away. But I would come back and hear all the stories. He was absolutely tearing up. Apparently, Mike Bernard. I just shout out to Big Mike there, but he was just an absolute beast, dunking on everybody at my time period, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then now I'll say shout out to Cam Hildreth. I don't even know if he's even a junior yet, but he's something serious as well.
Favorite basketball teammate?
Let's go. After passing that one, I can't.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then your favorite basketball memory?
Probably Commonwealth Games, maybe the whole thing about Commonwealth Games, the whole experience in Australia, or maybe the shot for the significance of it, or even signing my first Division One, my Division One scholarship. Probably maybe even that day, because that was like a combination of all my dreams really.
Yeah.
After signing the dotted line, it was all coming true then. So.
And then finally, what do you want your legacy to be? When people talk about you as a player, on and off the court, like, how do you want to be remembered?
Just that, I had game. I could play any position. I was tough. Good guy, decent, knowledgeable coach, great teammate.
Perfect. That's a perfect place to leave it. Thank you so much for taking the time. It is much appreciated, and I'm sure we will catch up again soon.
Thanks a lot, Sam.